What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Dissect That Film's Fresh Cuts, where we sit down and talk about the new release movies in theaters or on your favorite streaming services. Today, we are finally talking about Smile, which came out in late September, and I just been lazy and I haven't been able to get to a recording, and finally, it's here. I am your host, Brett Parker. Joining me is a very special guest from one of my favorite podcasts. It's Boomer. The wonderful Boomer from Podcast in the Woods. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, my friend. It's good to be here. It is good to finally be able to talk to you. I know that we've gone back and forth on the socials, you coming on our show and then, me coming on yours. And I'm finally glad that it is happening. And I'm pretty excited despite the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. It's maybe not the most exciting movie in the world, but I am excited to get down and talk about it. And before we actually get into anything, I do want to give a shout out to my co-host Gabby, who I know is always listening. We love your show. Hey, Gabby, we love you so much, and I am so thankful for you, my friend. Hope you're having a good evening tonight.
Yes, Gabby, I listen to your guys' show. And I love it. And you guys have such a great chemistry. And I can't wait to have both of you on the show. And I can't wait to join you guys on your show because you guys run an amazing show over there. I'm actually currently on my phone. If I pull up Good Pods right now, I'm currently listening to, God damn, I don't even remember what episode it is. But I'm listening to you guys right now. I'm listening to your Critters episode. And
yes, yeah,
it's fantastic because Gabby is she's prime in that episode, and it's great.
Yeah, she is amazing. I kind of put her through the ringer. It's funny. I always make the joke that like she picks the good movies. Like she's always watching these wonderful critically acclaimed movies and suggesting these awesome watches, and I just have a ton of terrible crap that I subject her to.
Hey, that's how it works over here. We have the goods and the bads and the uglies. So we definitely know how that is. But today we were talking about Smile, which this was actually a spur of the moment thing. I was actually going to record this by myself today. And I saw on Twitter that you had just went and saw the movie. And so I had to reach out. I had to reach out and have somebody on the show to talk to me about this movie. Because I know a couple other people who have seen it, but I was like, I need that fresh mind, somebody who has just seen it. I saw it the day it came out. So back in whenever the release date was. And so I still remember the movie, but to have that fresh mindset of just coming out of the theaters only a few hours ago, it was you were definitely somebody I needed on the show today. So thank you for joining Spur of the Moment.
Hey, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny, though, this is one of those movies. I can't believe, honestly, that you still remember anything about this movie.
Maybe it's because we both have, I think we're both going to have very different opinions on this movie.
Oh, we might. That'll be interesting.
Just the way that you've kind of you sprinkled some hints on how you feel about it before we've even gotten into it. I'm like, oh, I feel we're going to be on different sides of the fence on this one. But hey, that's the name of the game here. We did Hocus Pocus last week, and I didn't like that movie, and Angela liked it. So it's that's just how this goes. But you know what? In the end, you can still be friends, and that's what this is all about.
Absolutely, and that's what I say. Like, is the greatest thing about horror is there is something out there for everyone, and despite your backgrounds or how you're approaching the genre. There are movies that, one group of people is absolutely going to hate and another one that just adores the same flick. And there are movies there are two people that could watch the same movie and then receive just totally different things and a totally different experience from that movie. And that's why I am a massive horror fan to this day.
I don't believe it. But no, I'm just kidding. Boomer, we're already like 5 minutes into this, and we need to know who you are and what you do over there at that amazing podcast. Let us know.
Okay, so Yeah, absolutely. So the show is called Podcast in the Woods. We are available on all podcasting platforms. And started the show out by myself, just trying to make my way in the world. And then Gabby discovered me, or I discovered Gabby, however that went. And so we have been killing it for together for about the last 3 months. And we take I wouldn't say a deep dive, but we talk about horror films. And like I said earlier, a lot of times we have very, very different opinions on, what we love and what we don't love. But every single week is either one of my picks or one of her picks, and we just break down the movie, talk about it. But the main thing is just have a good time, and sometimes alcohol is required.
Absolutely. I'm not going to say anything negative about that. But yeah, you guys have only been doing this for 3 months. Is that
Well, Gabby and I've been together. We've been co-hosting together for about 3 or 4 months now.
Okay.
I did the show for about a month and a half or so before that, and I was just scrambling every single week to get guests and stuff like that. But man, we're really growing. It's crazy. When I first started this show, it's just to tell a real quick funny story. I know we got to get into the movie, but released the first episode, and I don't know about you, but I was so excited when my show finally kicked off. So I go to Apple Podcasts and I am trying to, in the little search bar, look for Podcast in the Woods. It doesn't pop up anywhere. I'm like, nobody's going to listen to this fucking show. But somehow we found our audience, and we're growing every week. People seem to love what we do for some reason. It may be the ridiculous nature that we approach every single episode, but like I said, it's all about having a good time. So whether we have one person or 1,000 people that listen to the show, man, we're just happy to talk about horror.
I mean, you guys. I mean, I've been listening to you guys for a while. I actually found out about you through the Baron's Hideout podcast, which Dustin is actually going to be a guest on the podcast in about a couple of weeks. So I'm very excited about that.
Awesome.
But yeah, so I met you through I heard about you guys through him, and then I got into the House That Screams, and then that whole family it's all great shows, and you guys do so many different things. Like currently I'm listening to your Critters episode, which is just, it's the very, you're just sitting down having a great conversation. So like you said, some alcohol is included in the episode, and you guys go on a great, you guys have such a great chemistry. And then, I listened, you guys did Jacob's Wife, the movie on Shudder, and that was a 3-hour long conversation where you were there, I think, but you weren't there, it was Gabby and Candy going on their thing. And it's, but that's great. It's great to have that kind of variety. It's not, the same thing every week. You guys are doing something a little bit different with everything that you guys talk about. And it's great. And it keeps me interested in I watch certain movies just so I can listen to your guys' review on it. Like, you guys did X in Pearl, and I'm like, I haven't seen X in Pearl. I got to watch those movies so I can listen to Podcasts in the Woods talk about it. So big fan, and looking forward to everything you guys do. But let's get into Smile before I gush some more. So Smile was released on September 30th, 2022. It was directed by Parker Finn in his directorial debut. It was actually based on an 11-minute short that he did called Laura Hasn't Slept. It stars, do you know how this is pronounced? Is it Sosie Bacon?
Yeah, I that's what I assumed. It was Sosie Bacon.
So if you don't know who she is, I mean, she's been an actress since 2005, but she is the daughter of Kevin Bacon, horror icon himself. And Kira Sedgwick is her mother, she's big in like TV. She's done some movies as well. But yeah, I don't know if I've seen anything with her. I was kind of surprised when I saw her in the trailer and I saw the name and I was like, oh, I gotta look this up. She's horror royalty.
Yeah, I didn't even put that together, so bravo.
It also stars Jesse T. Usher, who, if anyone is big into The Boys, he is one of the main soups in that show. He's also been he was in the new Shaft with Samuel L. Jackson, and he's been in a lot of other things. we'll get into him later. Kyle Gallner, who is in everybody's favorite horror movie, the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street remake, right? That's your favorite, right? It's my, no, I'm just kidding, everybody, before everybody's just never listening to this show again.
Boo! No.
Yeah. But he was also in the latest Scream that came out in January. I mean, he's been in a lot of other horror movies throughout the 2010s. And he's actually one of my favorite characters in this movie. Kal Penn. I mean, if you don't know who Kal Penn is, he's literally in everything. He was Harold and Kumar. Both those movies. He's been in TV shows, and it's good to see him in kind of. I like seeing him in these grounded films. I think he's a funny guy, but to see him in like horror or even dramas, I think he's a really good actor, and it was good to see him in this. The budget was $17 million. It has made almost $100 million. It sits at $92.2 million, which for a horror movie, which was going up against, I think, the Bros, which came out like the same weekend, which we won't get too much into that movie. Just the behind, the whole marketing with that. I feel the reason that this movie did so well was the crazy marketing it had. It had such amazing marketing. Like just sending people to baseball games with the word smile on their shirt, and they got the creepy smile just standing behind the dugout. Just all the different things that they were doing to get this, and they just played this trailer like 4,000 times. So
oh yeah, if you watched a movie in the last 2 months, you have seen this trailer because it is in everything. It is in absolutely everything.
But you know what? It worked because every time I saw the trailer, I was like, I got to see this. I got to see what this is all about. Even by the trailer, it did give me those similarities to the movies that it has been compared to since its release by critics and by just normal everyday people like us. But before we get into those movies and we talk about the similarities, let's talk about what we thought of the movie. Non-spoilers. We start off non-spoilers, and then we'll give a little spoiler warning, and then we go into our spoiler cast. So, Boomer, what did you think? Non-spoilers about Smile.
Okay. Well, getting into the marketing. So let's talk a little bit about that marketing so I can preference that with what I thought about the film. So I'm seeing the trailers and I'm like, okay, I've pretty much seen and I kind of have the feel of how this movie is going to. Was not really that excited, but hey, it's spooky season. So I'm going to watch every horror movie that comes out from September to the end of October. And so regardless of how I felt going in, I was going to watch it. So I go and see the film, and I've heard people talk about this briefly. I haven't listened to any reviews because I like to go into a movie. Sure, I saw the trailer 5 billion times, but I try to go into a movie as blind as possible so I don't have any preconceived notions. But it's hard with a movie. Like you said, this has made already $100 million so far that you kind of hear things. And I've heard it over and over again that this movie is not as bad as you think it might be. So that was kind of my mindset going into it. So I went and watched the movie today, and it's absolutely true. I had a good time with this film, and yes, it will get into, I'm sure, some of the tropes and all this stuff, and how other movies have kind of paved the way for this. There are things in this that I have seen before, that I've heard before, that are reminiscent of other things. But I think that there are also ways that this movie does make its own kind of unique path, using some of those tropes. There were some very, very good jump scares in this movie. I hated, again with the trailers, I hate it when the movies give you the jump scares in the trailer,
like one of the best ones too.
Right, because if they didn't show that, there is one particular thing in here that you would just not see coming, and it's phenomenal. It's really good, but it's like, oh, okay, I know what's going to happen, but still, there are still surprises in this movie. I really, really was surprised, like I said, by certain things, and I was kind of I don't want to talk about the ending, but anyway, there was some things in the ending that I was both both kind of knew where it was going, and it kind of surprised me at the same time. Spoilers. We'll talk about that. But I about 5 minutes into this movie, after I saw the opening scene and all those the just craziness that happens, I knew that it was going to start slowing down for just a little bit. So I was like, this is one of those popcorn movies. So I got out of my seat like right after that was done and ran to the concession stand to grab a soda and popcorn because it was going to be one of those times. So I really enjoyed my time with this movie. Do I think this is the greatest thing ever? Absolutely not. Do I think that it is unique and groundbreaking and spectacular? No, I don't. But I do also think that you'll have a good time with this movie. And I kind of think that you need to see this movie in the theater. And the reason I say that is for not only the atmosphere, but some of the music, some of the cues, and those jump scares are just not going to be quite as effective if you're sitting on the couch than if you go into the movie theater and watch this one.
I agree, and like you said, this movie should be seen in theaters, and it almost never went to theaters. This was almost a Paramount Plus exclusive right out the gate. So the fact that they took the risk of going, okay, well, no, we're going to try to put it in some theaters. And to be honest, like the theater that's near me, they're very hit and miss with horror. Like we didn't get Terrifier 2. We didn't get a lot of these. Like we never even got X. We got Pearl in our theater, but we didn't get X because I don't think people expected what X was going to be. So they didn't, like, some theaters just don't take that risk because, like, when we went to go see Smile, it was maybe 5 people in the theater. Like it wasn't a lot of people.
Oh, no.
Which is disappointing. But I mean, this still made a lot of money, so it's always great to see, and it's great to see horror actually succeeding over other movies that are kind of generic. Even though you can say this is a very generic horror movie, I think it did certain things that kind of separated it just a little bit from even the movies that it's being compared to. But yeah, it's another, it's one of those movies where it's like, oh, you saw this thing and now you're being chased. Like it's the same thing as The Ring. It's the same thing as It Follows, but you see the smile and it's coming after you. And listen, it was in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything. But
no.
But I enjoyed it because I love The Ring. And I haven't seen It Follows, but I know I've heard it's very good. But it's that similar style. But The Ring is like one of my favorites. Even, I know you're a huge J-horror fan, and you're probably more of a fan of the Japanese Ring than the American version. But I didn't grow up with the J-horror. I grew up with the American versions of the movie. So, like, yes, there are terrible ones, and I'll admit to those because most of them are trash. Except, like, but I loved The Ring. I thought it was well done for an American, remake of such an iconic J-horror. And then The Grudge, I think, did a decent job, and then everything else after that was kind of trash. But that's why I think I love this movie, because it had that Ring feel to it, and the jump scares. Yeah, the jump scares. Holy shit! There's really not been a movie that I've seen in a long time that's really, like, got me. And this movie's got me a few times. Like, there's just some jump scares where you're just like, okay, come on. Like, after a while, you're just like, all right, I don't know how much more I can take of this, okay? I'm getting older. My heart's not as good. This is ridiculous. But there's also some very just uncomfortable scenes, which I think separated it from The Ring. Because, like, The Ring was kind of just creepy, and it always had that eerie feeling about it. But, like, this movie makes you uncomfortable sometimes. And we'll get to what I'm talking about specifically when we get to spoilers, but there's just a couple scenes where, you think one thing's going to happen, but then something else happens, and it just makes you like, oh no. Because you feel bad for this character. Like, this main character is I think, a very likable person, and she's just getting torn to shreds just from this simple thing of just seeing something, a girl comes into her office and she sees something that she shouldn't have seen. and her whole life just comes unraveled. And it's not like she was somebody you disliked from the start. You like she was somebody who wanted to help people. She worked in a she was what was her technical job? She was just a therapist?
Yeah, she was like a therapist or a psychologist that worked in a traumatic psychiatric unit at the hospital.
Right, right. So yeah, so she's she's somebody who's trying to help people who are, some would think is beyond help, and you can tell like she works a lot of hours and she's doing a lot, and she's engaged and she's got this great life if you would think about it, but she's got a lot of trauma, of course. But she's a well-liked person, and to be honest, it doesn't go well. Like it's just at the end of it, you're like, damn, it's like it's heartbreaking. Like this movie's kind of heartbreaking. I just didn't think I was gonna feel that way when I first saw the trailers. Like there was no way I was gonna be like, oh man, I feel like I'm gonna feel something at the end of this, and I did. And I gotta give props to Parker Finn, the director, for doing that. But also, we'll get to it. I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending of this movie. Like it definitely it hits you, but it also you're just like, oh man, I feel like I've seen this before.
Yeah.
It's the same thing I've seen many times, and I hate when movies can't kind of stick that landing. And I know some people, I've listened to other reviews on this movie, and people have talked about how they like, the way this movie ends. But I just remember turning to the people I went to see it. I was just like, man, it was going so well. And then it just, okay, I've seen this movie. You've seen Barbarian, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I was Barbarian opening night.
All right. So yeah, and to be honest, it's kind of there's some elements from Barbarian that kind of sneaks its way into here that I was like, oh, here we go again. Okay. I just saw this a couple weeks ago, but like, but yeah, overall, I like this movie. This is definitely a rewatchable movie for me. Probably wouldn't see it in theaters again, but like if it comes out on a streaming service, it's definitely something I'd want to see again, because you always pick up on those things that you probably missed the first time. What about you? Is this something that you would watch again?
Yeah, in fact, it's funny. Let me put a caveat on that. So, like you, I will not be seeing this in the theater again. I did see a movies that have kind of blown me away this year that I've wanted to go back and watch was X and Pearl and Barbarian and Nope, which I think are just amazing pieces of cinema, not just horror movies, but they're phenomenal pieces of film. This one, on the other hand, because it's so generic, and I don't think, and I say that you heard me. I do like this film, but it's very paint by the numbers, and so it's not something that I will be rushing out to see again. However, yes, when it comes out on streaming, I'll probably check it out again just to kind of reinforce what I thought, or maybe have my opinion changed a little bit. We'll see how that goes, but it's not something that I would pay again to go and watch.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in the same boat. So yeah, so that's, I don't really have anything else non-spoilers. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into some spoilers. So if you haven't seen Smile, make sure to go check it out. I know I think, Boomer just saw it in theaters today, so it's still in the theaters. Go check it out and then come back and listen to the rest of this episode. Or if you don't care, then keep listening. So Boomer, now we're going to do the same thing again. Tell me, let's go over what you didn't like about this movie, and you can include spoilers now.
Okay, so here we go. Like, all right, yeah, let's
here
do
we
it.
go, baby.
So again, I thought this was, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's very generic. So we want to mention some of these titles. Okay, here we go. Ouija, The Bye Bye Man, Uma, Tooth Fairy, Darkness Falls, Conjuring. It's like The Ring. All this stuff is based upon the same kind of concept, where you have this mythology that is built upon some kind of supernatural character. And once you are in their crosshairs, or once that they come upon you, then you're pretty much just done, and there's no way for you to get out of it, and all this kind of thing. So I really knew kind of what was going to happen. So I was not excited about the journey. Now, some of the things that I did like, and I say that I'm not excited about the journey, and okay, well, here we go. All over the place. I know I'm rambling. Sorry.
Oh, it's all right.
Um, um, when you mentioned the characters, and actually feeling for some of these characters, and I think this is where, when you talked about how we're going to differ on this, I think that this is the main aspect that we will differ on, because I didn't care about a single character in this movie, not one, including our protagonist. And part of the reason is we get that opening scene where her mother is obviously has a lot of mental illness. She is self-medicating and all this stuff. And so this woman had grown up in a very terrible home. There was a tragedy. And that was the problem to me, is I've seen all this before. And I just wished that they had, come up with something new, well, I mean, it's hard for them to come up with something completely new. I understand that, but at least something that I didn't feel like I have trekked over and over and over again. And so I did not care about her backstory. What I will say, though, what saved this was the performances. And I think that the performances in this movie elevated it a little bit. Sosie Bacon does a tremendous job. I mean, she is just acting her ass off in this movie. Some would say acting for the rafters, but it's just great. And so because I didn't care about any of the characters. So I was the most that I could be on her was neutral. And so because every other character in this besides the cop in here was kind of treating her like trash, then it just made me hate the other characters. And so, I like I said, I didn't care about them, but as far as the performances, I thought were amazing. And I won't get into all the jump scares, but that was my main positive, and my main negative is the familiarity, and including the ending. And I don't know if you want to talk about the ending separately, because we can go through that, but I'll tell you what I was thinking on that. It was not good, but that was my main sticking point, was just, I've seen this so many times. Just give me something different. But the things that elevated this movie to where I actually had a good time and I actually enjoyed my time with it was the performances, specifically from Sosie Bacon, who was incredible, actually incredible in this movie. And the jump scares and kind of the atmosphere and the music for it did it for me. There were, and some of the music really, it didn't even it was just real subtle things, to where she's sitting in the car, and I can't even describe how it is, or the way that the music was going, but it was just like these, not even music, but maybe just like all these eerie sounds.
Yeah.
That was just kind of off-putting. And so even though that there wasn't really anything particularly scary happening at the time, yet you would still felt a little off kilter because of the sound design in this movie, which is just phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. The ending was very disappointing to me. I mean, I did. So I think, I mean, I can agree with pretty much everything you said, other than the fact, like, I did kind of care for Sosie Bacon's character, just because of the fact of, like, just seeing the absolute like shit she was going throughout this movie. It was just like, man, this sucks. But the problem is that by the end, like you said, we've seen this story before. It's like the same trajectory as a lot of other characters and a lot of other movies that have the same kind of concept, where it's, a character, doing good things, but she's haunted by tragic backstory, and then she gets caught up in this kind of curse thing. I mean, it's pretty much The Ring. Like, if you think about it, Other than like, I think Naomi Watts' character, I don't think Naomi Watts' character had that tragic of a backstory, but it's that like, yep, she saw some shit when she was a kid, and now she's being haunted by it, and bad things happen. But I enjoyed it in a way, but I just wish that they could have landed the plane. I just felt like it just turned into like the curse turned out to be I'm gonna just talk about the ending. It turned out to be a monster. Like, what is this? Like, I did not like the fact that it was like, oh, she's seeing the vision of her mother, and then it turns into this tall beast thing that looks like the mother from Barbarian. I literally, once it started doing that, I was like, I just saw this movie 2 weeks ago. Like, what am I watching right now?
Yeah.
It was very like, oh. And then, I mean, nothing gets resolved. It just keeps going. I feel like this is something they probably envisioned to try to make a sequel, which will probably take place with Kyle Gallner's character because of the way it ended. And I was like, we don't need this. We don't need this, because The Ring, at least for me, the original Ring, good movie. The Ring 2, it wasn't. It's bad. So we don't need Smile 2. It doesn't need to happen.
Yeah. No.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I agree with you. So yeah, yeah. So I'll dive right into this to this ending, and I'm watching familiar tropes and all these things happen. So we're getting to the ending, and she decides that she is going to have to get away from everybody, which kind of makes sense in the story. So for this curse to happen, you have to kill yourself in front of somebody and traumatize them, and the curse passes on to this next person. Yep. So I get it. Okay. I'm going to try to separate ourselves from everybody and just be alone. So if I kill myself or whatever, then the curse ends. The thing is as I knew, because I've seen it. I've seen it before. All right. So the ending of this movie, we'll get right into that since you have opened the door, my friend.
Yes.
So I'm watching this, and I know, because I've been down this road, I know exactly how this is going to end. And you'll have to forgive me because I don't remember the cop boyfriend's name off the top of my head. But as soon as he's calling her and telling her, hey, I'm going to be here for you, or where are you at, and all this stuff, I knew for a fact that he was going to show up at some point in the third act of this film, and she was going to end up passing the curse on to him. The difference that I have, and I understand how you think that the thing is a bit silly, the reveal of the creature or entity or demon or whatever it is that we're seeing. I didn't mind that so much. That was the one part of this finale that I actually kind of liked, just because the effects were so well done.
Yes.
So not only the huge woman creature, but when it rips its face off and reveals all the smiles and all that stuff, was terrifying. I thought that was actually really terrifying and really, really well done. So that was the one part of this ending that I actually enjoyed. But what makes me so mad, and I am the biggest fan of downer endings and, oh, you have no hope left and all this kind of stuff. It's nothing. No, they can't, because once you are infected with this curse, you're basically just done. And I don't think that they do that. Even that hopelessness, I don't think that they do that in a very a very good way. In fact, it kind of made me mad when she finally comes to accept that she cannot accept all this guilt upon herself. And you think that maybe that's going to mean something, but it doesn't. It means absolutely nothing in the ending and the finale of this film, because she just dies anyway. So, hey, great on you. For the last 5 seconds of your life, you have gotten over the trauma of your past. But guess what? You're still done anyway, because we got to do that. We've got to have the most generic ending possible. And so they just ruin it. They ruin her journey, which just irritated me to no end. I despised that when they did that. Either just don't have it at all, just don't have it, and just have her be traumatized, which would make sense for the creature, or have her accept that, make a mistake if you want your dark ending, or something, anything else besides what we got. Because as soon as she burned the creature and did all this other stuff, I knew that it still wasn't over. And of course, it wasn't. And that's what bugged me so much about the finale of this film.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you hit everything, the nail on the head on everything when it comes to the ending, because it's like we've seen it before where it's like you beat the creature, you get out of everything, and then she goes to see Joel, the cop, and then you think everything's going to be okay, and then you see him smile, and you're like, well, she's back at the house. It's not over. And then it just all goes downhill because, she ends up, killing herself in front of Joel, transferring the curse to him, and then it's over. And you're like, oh, well, that's some way of trying to force yourself into a sequel. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I understand having a downer ending, but like that one was just like, no, you're setting up for a sequel. Yeah, that was your whole point. I do want to shout out though, for the practical effects of this movie. They were done by Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr. of Amalgamated Dynamics, who were essential behind the creation of the aliens in Aliens. Like,
oh wow,
they're massive in the effects industry. So the fact that this first time filmmaker got the likes of them to come in and do the practical effect, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And we kind of, one of the points that we kind of danced all around, we haven't talked about yet, but were the jump scares. What was your favorite jump scare in this movie?
Probably the one where she's at her computer and the freaking thing just comes out from the side of her. Like, that one got me. But also, like, it wasn't really a jump scare. It was the one where she goes in her house and she sees the girl in the shadows. I thought that was I love that imagery. Yeah. It's not a jump scare, but you're like, oh, I don't like that. I'm out of there. Like, she's just standing there like, no, go. Her boyfriend sucked, by the way. I did not like her fiance. He sucked. He seems like he just wanted to get out of the whole situation. And I understand, like, she's going through a lot of shit. And, like, he just picked her up from her sister's house after she, her nephew pulls a cat out of a box for his birthday. And I was like, I get it. Crazy shit's going on here. But, like, you are literally not supporting her at all. And then you throw in her face, like, he threw in her face something about, like, something about her family or something like that. Because of the fact that, like, her mom ended up dying and, she still lives with all that trauma and stuff like that. And he kind of throws that in her face. And I'm like, you suck. Like, why did you leave Joel? He seems like a cool guy. Like, he seems like a nice dude. And I know he's trying to get her back, so he's playing that nice guy card. But, man, Trevor, you suck.
Yeah, he was definitely our jackass of the movie. But my favorite one was when she was looking at her computer, and it was either the computer or the files. I can't remember which one now. But when she was looking at that in bed, and then her mom's voice starts coming from that dark the dark doorway, and then she turns off the lights, and I'm back. I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah. What are you doing? Why are you turning off the lights?
Oh, that was terrifying. That was one that was like, oh, that one made me uncomfortable. That's the one where I'm like, I am shutting my door at night. I do not want to see my hallway. No. Yeah, no, that's a real good one. I'm trying to think of other ones. Like, it's been a bit since I've seen the movie, and I know there was a lot of them. Like, the one that would have been really effective was the one in the car, the one where she's sitting in the car and her sister comes out, and then the head twist, and I'm like, but I saw it in the trailer 1,000 times, so I knew it was happening. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I figured that was when it was going to happen, and it just didn't have that same effect. And I can't stand when movies do that. Like, that would have been a good one. That one would have made me jump a little bit, just because you don't expect it.
Yeah, I mean, that one was good. The one at the party was good when the smiley face is sitting in the chair, and then it just pops into her face, and she goes back through the glass table. That one was really good. That one got me. It was pretty neat. But I mean, they did a couple of things in here that weren't necessarily jump scares, but just kind of put you at unease, and was just kind of creepy, where, like, even when she first meets the girl and she goes in and she's not sitting at the chair, and then she's just behind the door, and all the crazy stuff happens, and then she goes to answer the phone and she turns around and she's not there. Oh man, that was so good. That was so good.
A lot of good ones. What'd you think of the CG cat kid pulls it out of the box? It looks so bad.
I mean, it did. I was just kind of so. I watched this. I had the benefit of watching this with like a half full theater, so everybody was kind of going along for the ride, which may have made it just a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
Where everybody was kind of jumping at the same time and like, oh no, hell no, I ain't going in there, and
right.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But whenever there was a different box, when it wasn't the train box that she had bought, I knew it was the cat. And so I didn't even really get that good of a look at the cat, just because I was already laughing for some reason, because I knew that there was a cat in a box.
Yeah. I just like, I chuckled a little bit when he pulled the cat out of the box, and I was like, I mean, it's supposed to have a different effect on you because you're like, oh no, that's where the cat went. But in reality, I'm just seeing this really bad CG cat. Like, you couldn't have just, like, that could have been practical. I know it's probably traumatizing for this child. Hey, can you hold this fake dead cat? But instead he's like holding nothing. He's like, ah.
It's like a Kermit the Frog thing that they just CGI'd a cat onto.
Yeah. And I wasn't a fan of the sister and her husband. I didn't like, they just sucked. And I more the husband. But like the whole, they have that dinner and she's just going off about like things about like her kids and stuff, and it just things like clearly Sosie Bacon's character doesn't give a shit about. And she sounds just like that, that like uptight Californian girl, like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, please stop talking. No one at this table cares.
It seemed like a totally different movie at that point. That was really weird.
Lord.
That was, really out of place. What I will say though is one of the other positives for this film, that when it slows down and you get to spend some time, you actually get to spend some time with the character, specifically Sosie Bacon, and not even like doing all the research and trying to find out what's going on, but just her as a person. Then you kind of get her history and her interaction with the different characters around her. When the movie slows down, it's actually really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right after that opening scene, it's like, when she's talking to the doctor, and even before that, when she's talking to the other patient, I'm enjoying all the stuff that's going on, and I found it fascinating. And I'm like, oh, okay, I want to know more about this world. But again, they don't trust you with that, and you just get more of the same silliness that you've seen over and over again, instead of maybe making this film a little bit different by focusing on your main character and developing her and allowing her to shine, because she's killing it. What are you doing? What are you doing, Mr. Parker?
I'm doing a podcast right now, but no, but I agree. It just, I feel like it just didn't know where to go, because like, this was, like I said, it was based on an 11-minute short, and they had to try to make this into a 2-hour movie. And I just feel like there was just a little bit of padding in there, a little bit of unnecessary stuff that just didn't need to be a part of it. But it's just how it goes when you're trying to make a feature length film. I think it did okay, but it's like I said, we talked about many times. It's a very generic horror flick that I enjoyed, even if it was generic. But is there anything else you want to add before we end this?
No, I think we about covered it all. I'm with you, and I don't know how to even necessarily grade this, but I would say that again, that I liked the film, even if I knew exactly what was going to happen in it. I think it was there were some parts in it that had elevated it just enough to make this actually a really, really enjoyable watch in the theater.
I agree. All right. Well, that is going to be it for us talking about Smile. But before we go, Boomer, tell everybody where they can find you.
All right, my dudes and deadites out there, one more time, you can find us Podcast in the Woods on all podcasting platforms. We do have some very, very special things coming up. In fact, releasing tomorrow, there is a debate episode between Gabby and myself. One of us, and I will not spoil this, but one of us chose Hereditary, the other chose Midsommar as the better film, and we debate that over several different aspects, and it's amazing. It's a good time. So yes, Podcast in the Woods, all podcasting platforms. And we love you all. We love our listeners, and we love this show as well. And again, I'm thankful to be here, my friend. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. It was especially spur of the moment as it was, and with all the tech issues that we've been having tonight, we got it done. It's not going to be fun to edit, but we got it done. But thank you again for being on the show. I can't wait to have you back. We're going to actually have you back very soon. We're going to talk about that, and then hopefully, I'd be able to jump over into the woods to join you and Gabby, because I can't wait for that. But
absolutely.
If you want to find our show, we're on all the podcast services. I mean, you're listening to us, so you clearly found us. But if you want to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, we're at Dissect That Film. And our link tree will be in the description, as will all the links to Podcasts in the Woods and Boomer and Gabby. But until next time, I am Brett Parker. That is Boomer, Podcasts in the Woods. And this has been another episode of Fresh Cuts. See y'all again next time.